Hello, today my name is Commander John Lipinski, retired, United States Navy. I spent 38 years in the service, but I'd like to take a minute to recognize a national hero that finally got recognized 70 plus years late. Captain Royce Williams, in 1950, right after the Korean War started, was aboard ship, and he was launched when they got word that there were 6 enemy aircraft, MiG-17s, that had deployed out of North Korea, and they were approaching the ship. The ship launched 4 F-9F-2s to engage the 6 MiGs. Now, the F-9 is a aircraft that had 4 20-millimeter guns in the nose, but had limited capabilities, straight wings. It had one advantage: at low altitude it could outturn the MiGs, but anything at upper altitude, the MiGs had a great advantage with speed and maneuverability. So they were totally mismatched. Royce Williams departed with his 3 other F-9s and engaged the MiGs. When they started the engagement, one F-9 had a failure in his fuel pumps and had to immediately return to the ship. So now it's 3 against 6. Royce attacks the aircraft and heavily damaged a MiG-17, and his running mate chased the MiG back towards North Korea. And eventually they were able to prove years later that it actually crashed, and that they credited him with shooting out that particular MiG. The second MiG, he's engaging, trying to avoid being shot up, and the second member of his group gets hit with some damage, and he returns to the ship. So now they are down to 2 against 5. And the third F-9 gets damaged and leaves and goes back to the ship. So Royce is out there trying to fight off 3 and 4 of the MiGs by himself. He successfully downs a total of 3 more MiGs out of the 6. One that had already left the scene and crashed back in North Korea. So in all, he shot down 4 MiGs. The other 2 MiGs apparently turned and ran, and he had to make a run towards the ship to try to land, and he was so badly shot up and nursed his F-9, F-2 Panther back to the carrier and was able to land it, and they verified, got the gun cameras out of it and everything, and they could verify that he had shot down these MiGs. But his plane was so damaged that they had to push it over the side to keep the deck clear in the event that any more MIGs came out. He was called immediately when he got out of the airplane up to the admiral, and they said, "We cannot allow you to mention any of this because at that particular time, the Russians didn't know that they had the capability of tracking and hearing them when they launched. And they didn't want that word to get out, so he was sworn to secrecy, even though it would have been national news and everything. He couldn't, for years, talk about it or even mention that it had happened. Everybody on the ship couldn't say a word about it because he wasn't allowed to tell anybody on the ship what had happened. The other pilots that were with him that got back to the ship couldn't say a word. They were sworn to secrecy. So finally, after a number of years, Royce was able to, after the Berlin Wall fell, Royce was able to discuss with some Russian pilots who verified and took him to where the first MiG that he shot down was buried. But he still couldn't elaborate on it or bring it out to public knowledge. So eventually, the VA group in San Diego made a movie trying to honor him and try to get the movie industry to accept it, and they declined because they couldn't find any verification of it until DOD finally authorized him and finally recognized and awarded him the Navy Cross a couple of months ago. So Royce Williams, a national hero for over 70 years, is finally recognized. As you progress up in the chain of command and you get higher up, you get additional jobs, and you eventually wind up in the commander, lieutenant commander area, and you become department heads and so forth. And you build on each job with training and learning, and you become more effective. And I was sitting in my home finishing up a job with NASU Aviation Engineering Service Unit when my secretary got a phone call that said my detailer had called. And my detailer said, "I know it's early, but I've got a set of orders for you. And it looks like you're going to go to Diego Garcia." Now, for people who don't know what or where Diego Garcia is, it is an island it's a British island out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, miles from anything, and the Brits leased it to the U.S. Navy to build a station there to monitor action in that end of the world of any Russian submarine activity and Russian shipping and so forth. When the Navy upgraded to the P-3 aircraft, they decided that they had to put P-3s for surveillance and reconnaissance and monitoring any Russian traffic in the Indian Ocean in that end of the world. So apparently somebody remembered that when I was stationed in Sigonella, Sicily, I had acquired 10 vans, support vans for the P-3 aircraft. And of course, I had experience in putting the vans together and finding the weak spots and stuff. And we had a fire while I was in Sigonella as the department head, and we were able to get the vans functional and working and supporting the P-3s in the Med. Now they wanted to set up a support and surveillance on Diego Garcia, and somebody said, throw Lieutenant Commander John Lipinski in there, and he's got van experience, and we want him there in at least 2 or 3 weeks while they finished the vans. So I'm sitting at home, and I get this phone call to call my detailer, and he breaks this news to me. They're going to cut me short. They're going to send me over to the Philippines, and I'm going to wait for the vans to be shipped and finished, and then I'm going to take them to Diego Garcia, and I would probably be there from a year to 18 months. And that is an unaccompanied tour. Well, now I've got to explain to the family, because I was looking forward to going to another squadron or another detail aboard the ship, and it would be a workup time, and I wouldn't have to leave the family for probably 6 to 9 months, and then I would go on a Westpac tour and be back after 9 or 10 months, and then work up again for another year. And as it turned out, I got a second phone call that said, belay your last orders. You are now going to go to Naval Air Station Guam, Agana, Guam, and to be a department head there, and you have to be there in 4 days. Well, that disrupted all of my plans. I had already planned to ship everything that I had time for and stuff all over to Diego Garcia, and moved to the Philippines for a short time, and suddenly I have 4 days to pack up, tell the family I got to go, and I had 2 fruit trees, avocado fruit trees, that I'm sitting in California, and they're on a 5-gallon bucket, and I've got to plant them. So in a panic, I dig a hole in the backyard, and I'm planting these things, and I bent over, and I put the branch of the avocado tree through my left eye. So they take me down to the Navy hospital. And the Navy hospital says I would have to be there for a while. They wanted to get a special eye surgeon brought in, and they would operate on my eye and everything, make sure that I didn't lose sight of it. And I said, you better call my detailer, because I'm supposed to be in Guam in 4 days. So they call the detailer, and the detailer says, can you patch them and send them and let them repair it in Guam? They said, well, it's not the best idea to do that, but yes, we'll put a big bandage around his head, and we'll give him a set of orders to carry 450 pounds worth of equipment, and he has to be up in Tinker Air Force Base in the next couple of days. So patch him and send him.